It doesn't take long in life to find out that things work better when there's oil about. In your average engine today, there are over 200 separate moving parts. For many of us, engines have become an indispensable part of our lives. They help us get to the places that matter to us. For some of us, driving itself is a means of earning a living. We know oil is important for our engines, so every now and then we check the dipstick and top up when necessary. Deprive an engine of oil, and it's like stopping the flow of blood to the heart. An engine will literally grind to a halt within minutes, which is exactly what you want to avoid when you depend on an engine to keep you moving. So what is this fluid that at times lies cold and motionless in the sump at the bottom of an engine? Then all of a sudden, following startup, this fluid is expected to keep fast-moving metal surfaces cool and gliding effortlessly past each other. Take all the additives that are used in a modern lubricant away, and what you are left with are base oils. Many of these are conventional mineral oils that are distilled from crude petroleum during the refining process. But synthetic base oils are becoming increasingly important because they have certain characteristics that can dramatically enhance oil. Some synthetics increase oil's performance at high and low temperatures. Others, being more resistant to oxidation, prolong an oil's life, while some help make oil more biodegradable. Base oils, whether mineral or synthetic, share important qualities that make them suitable as the main ingredients in a lubricant. Essentially, they are not too volatile, and even at quite low temperatures, they still flow reasonably well. The rate of flow of an oil is another way of describing its viscosity. And the viscosity of an oil is very much influenced by the temperature. At high temperatures, some base oils become too thin, whereas at low temperatures, other base oils become too thick and sluggish. The basis of a modern engine oil is a carefully selected blend of base oils which are thin enough to operate in cold weather and thick enough to maintain lubrication at high temperatures. What will transform a modern engine oil into an outstanding lubricant is the skillful and subtle blending of additives designed to keep modern engines running as smoothly and efficiently as possible. During the night here, the temperature has dropped to minus 20 degrees Celsius. Parked overnight in the open, the oil in the engine of this diesel-fueled truck is very cold. With hundreds of kilometers to cover today, the driver of this truck can't afford to let the weather get in his way. Within a few minutes of turning the ignition key, the temperature in parts of this engine will rise from minus 20 degrees to well over 100 degrees Celsius. So what does that demand of the oil? The moment the engine kicks into life, the oil must be thin enough to very quickly reach all the vital parts of the engine. Once running, however, the temperature in the engine rises dramatically, and the oil must remain thick enough to maintain a strong lubricating film between all the moving parts. Let's assume that greatly magnified, oil could be represented as countless molecules huddling together in a constant state of motion. As the oil gets hotter, the molecules become more agitated and spread out, making the oil thinner. By introducing a chemical additive called a viscosity index improver, the movement of the smaller molecules is restricted. because the additive contains molecules that expand with heat, making the oil behave as if it were thicker. As the oil cools again, the molecules that make up the chemical additive return to their original size. Oil that performs well over a wide temperature range like this is known as multigrade. Before the advent of multigrade oil, people who lived in cold climates had to change the oil in their engine at least twice a year, when one season ended and the other began. So the next time you buy some oil for your engine, take a look at the grades defined on the containers. The numbers relate to the viscosity of the oil. The lower the first number, the lower the temperature at which this oil is able to perform, making it more suitable for cold start situations, where the oil has to be pumped from the sump to the moving parts of the upper engine very quickly. The higher the second number, the higher the temperature at which the oil will be able to perform and maintain higher viscosity. Higher viscosity leads to better wear protection, which is good news, but unfortunately results in poorer fuel economy, so a balance needs to be struck. The numbers are representations only and do not specify actual degrees of temperature. The W is a reminder of the days when oil needed to be changed before the onset of winter. During the journey this truck will make today, its engine is going to be subjected to loads and speeds that will make yet further demands on its lubricating oil. Take a look at the working surfaces of an engine under an electron microscope, and what appears relatively smooth to the naked eye suddenly shows up as a surface covered in peaks and valleys. It's the job of a lubricant to prevent metal surfaces like these from touching each other. If the film of oil between surfaces like this is too thin, the peaks will rub against each other, creating so much frictional heat that they could weld together and then tear apart. Serious damage would ensue very quickly. By introducing molecules to the oil that chemically bond with the metal under intense heat, a protective layer is formed on the working surfaces, allowing them to effectively slide over each other and help prevent wear. Paradoxically, this kind of wear is likely to happen at slow speeds rather than fast. Here's why. In this illustration, a belt is moving along under a plate, which is floating on a film of oil between the two. As the belt moves faster, more oil is drawn into the space between them, and the pressure on the oil increases. The higher the speed, the thicker the film of oil, and the greater the pressure on the oil. As the belt slows down, less oil is drawn in, the film gets thinner, and consequently the oil pressure drops. Now increase the load on the plate, and yet more oil is squeezed out from between the working surfaces. The oil film gets even thinner, and a point could be reached where the oil is so thin it could actually rupture. This experiment shows just how effective a film of oil is in keeping separate components still moving past each other, even when under enormous pressure. As this disc turns, oil is drawn into the space between it and the revolving metal ball bearing below. If you then add a load equivalent to half a ton per square centimeter, the pressure can get so intense that at the point of contact with the disc, the metal ball actually begins to flatten out. It is only a very thin film of oil that prevents a rupture from taking place. So when the speed is low and the load is high, oil is under particular stress. It is stress of this kind that occurs in valve train systems in modern engines, particularly where a cam is working against a stiffly sprung follower. Oil is also subject to high stresses around pistons, in the hammer blows they receive during combustion. Crankshaft bearings and the irregular loading they are subjected to also puts oil under stress. And here, as in any part of the engine where pressure is exerted, the viscosity of the lubricant is a vital factor. But the viscosity of an oil can only do so much. In all these situations, if there's a rupture in the film of oil, it is only anti-wear additives that provide the final line of defense. If that line is breached, this is the sort of serious damage that occurs. Even in the shade here, temperatures in summer hover around 40 degrees Celsius. As far as this operator is concerned, as long as the oil in his engine helps him finish the job on time, that's all that matters. His engine, however, actually demands a lot more. One of the main functions of a lubricant is to act as a coolant, absorbing heat where the moving parts generate it and carrying it away from them. So, from the sump of an engine, oil is pumped to every working part. Oil is splashed around the timing gears and delivered by jets onto cams and followers. It travels through oilways on the camshaft to reach the main and connecting rod bearings. It flows over the valve chain, is squirted onto pistons, under crowns, and splashed around piston pins and onto cylinder walls. It's a hostile environment that oil has to operate in, so there are additives too that help protect the oil and, in turn, your engine. With so many moving parts in an engine, it is hardly surprising that air gets whipped up into the oil. Oxygen caught up in the oil can do real harm. The hotter the oil gets, the more readily it can oxidize, causing it to thicken. It can get so thick that the oil can't efficiently move around the engine anymore. So to limit the effect, an antioxidant additive is introduced. Around piston crowns and valves, high temperatures can cause deposits like this to build up. If that goes on unchecked, damaging deposits form on piston crown lands and in the piston ring grooves. These deposits can make the ring stick with resultant failure. If you take a close look at the lining of a cylinder, you can see, even with the naked eye, a cross-hatched but skillfully honed surface, tiny grooves deliberately created in the manufacturing process. These extremely fine grooves provide a ledge, if you like, for the oil to cling to so that it can do its job properly. Piston deposits can start to polish the cylinder wall by removing the cross-hatching. The oil can't get a grip and is wiped off the cylinder wall into the combustion chamber where it is burnt, and ultimately the increase in oil consumption becomes so high that the engine must be repaired. To prevent deposits from forming on engine components, a detergent additive is introduced. The additive doesn't destroy the deposits, but creates a protective barrier on metal surfaces. So the detergent keeps the metal surfaces in the engine clean. Even when an engine stops, oil is still open to attack. As metal surfaces cool, water droplets form and combine with sulfur and nitrogen oxides to produce highly corrosive acids in the oil. Another property of the detergent additive is its ability to neutralize acids, and that helps prevent corrosion. Complete combustion does not occur in an engine. Half-burnt gases, fuel, and particles of carbon are blown past the pistons into the oil. In time, and in cooler parts of the engine, they join together with water, resins, and acids to form a black sludge that obstructs oilways and filters. By introducing a dispersant additive, an oil-soluble film is formed around each particle. That keeps them separate, helping to prevent the formation of sludge. Of course, no oil, however skillfully blended or however many additives are incorporated, will last forever, and at some stage it has to be replenished. Without a doubt, it is our concern for the environment that will drive new challenges facing the oil industry. Apart from the demands already being made on oil to provide better fuel efficiency, lower emission standards, and reduced oil consumption, oil will also be expected to perform over longer periods of time. That would mean longer intervals between oil changes and less chance for used oil to escape into our environment. So oils, like the engines they serve, are constantly changing and developing. The real skill comes in developing lubricants to achieve the full design life for your engines. When that is achieved, you, the engine owner, are the winner through optimum engine life and lowest cost of operation.